Have you ever asked yourself if the moon is still there when you're not looking at it? I know, it sounds kind of silly, right? But that exact question actually comes from Albert Einstein, and it cracks open one of the biggest, weirdest puzzles in all of physics. A puzzle that completely changed how we think about reality itself.
Yeah, Einstein literally asked a colleague that. And it wasn't just some philosophical musings. It was his way of pushing back against this new bizarre theory called quantum mechanics. And that one question, it just perfectly sums up why he was so deeply uncomfortable with where science was heading. You see, Einstein believed in, well, what we'd all call common sense reality. The moon, your chair, the planet, they have real properties. They exist, whether we're looking at them or not. But then along comes quantum mechanics, with this wild idea that, no, things like an object's position aren't even real until you measure them. The act of looking, it said, is what makes reality snap into place. And for Einstein, that was just crazy talk. But the thing that really got under his skin was an idea he famously called spooky action at a distance. This was the notion that two particles could be linked in some mysterious way so that measuring one over here could instantly, and I mean instantly, affect the other one even if it was on the other side of the universe. To him, this just screamed impossible. It felt like the universe was cheating, breaking its own speed limit, the speed of light. Okay, so to really get why he was so bothered by this, let's just forget the heavy math for a second. Instead, let's imagine we're scientists trying to figure out a puzzle. And the puzzle is this strange black box, an experiment that takes this huge philosophical fight and boils it down to a simple, concrete mystery we can solve. Okay, so here's the setup. In the middle, you've got a source, C. And way off on either side, you have two detectors, A and B. And I really want you to remember this. There are no wires, no Wi-Fi, no signals of any kind connecting these three parts. They are completely isolated. Each detector is simple. It just has a switch with three settings, 1, 2, or 3, and a light that flashes either red or green. That's it. So here's what we do for each test run. First, we just randomly flick the switches on A and B. Could be 1 and 3, 2 and 2, whatever. Then we push the button on the source. A second later, each detector's light flashes, either red or green. All we do is write down the result in our notebook, the switch settings and the colors, something like 32RG. And then we just do it again and again and again, thousands of times. All right, so you do this over and over and over again. You fill up notebooks with data. At first glance, it just looks like a total mess of random letters and numbers. But as you start to analyze it, two super simple but completely baffling rules just pop out. Rule number 1 is just rock solid. It never fails. Anytime the switches on both detectors happen to match, so 1 and 1, or 2 and 2, or 3 and 3, the colors they flash always match. Every single time. Perfect agreement. Okay, but then there's rule number 2. This time, if you just look at all the data and you completely forget about the switches, you just look at the colors, what do you find? The colors match exactly half the time, and they're different the other half. A perfect 50-50 split. Total randomness. So, this is the big question, right? How in the world are they pulling this off? They have this perfect agreement when the switches match, but we know for a fact they can't talk to each other. So how does detector B know what color detector A is going to flash? Now, when you're faced with a puzzle like this, your gut, your common sense, it screams out that there's really only one logical answer. It's an explanation that Einstein would have loved. The idea is pretty simple. The particles have to be carrying some kind of secret instructions from the get-go. Each particle leaves the source with a complete set of answers, like a little cheat sheet that says, okay, if the switch is 1, flash red. If it's 2, flash red. If it's 3, flash green. It's pre-programmed. And this whole instruction set thing, it explains rule number 1 perfectly. Of course they match when the switches are the same. All the source has to do is send out 2 particles with the exact same cheat sheet. If both get the same question, they'll give the same answer. Problem solved. Easy peasy, right? I mean, this just feels right, doesn't it? This is what Einstein called local reality. Everything is decided beforehand. There's no spooky stuff happening across space. It's neat, it's logical, it has to be the answer. But, and this is a huge but, what if that clean, simple, common sense answer is just wrong? What if we can actually prove that it's impossible? Let's dig into the numbers and see what happens when our perfect theory crashes into cold, hard data. All right, time to put this instruction set theory on trial. It handled rule number 1 like a champ. But what about rule number 2? the one that says the overall results are a 50-50 random split. Does our common sense model predict that too? Or does it actually break down? And boom, this is the killer. It turns out, if the particles really were carrying instructions, you can prove, just with basic math, that the colors should match at least 5 out of 9 times overall. That's about 56% of the time. That's the prediction. But what does the real-world data show? Exactly 50%. Not about 50%. Exactly 50%. Our obvious common sense answer is just flat out, provably wrong.
And look, this isn't just a small rounding error. This is a head-on collision between our common sense and reality. This amazing piece of logic is called Bell's theorem, and its conclusion is absolutely unavoidable. The particles are not carrying hidden instructions. The universe doesn't work that way. Something much, much weirder is happening here.
So, if there are no secret instructions, then what in the world is going on? How does the black box actually work? To find the answer, we have to dive back into that wonderfully weird world of quantum mechanics.
The real secret has a name: quantum entanglement. The source creates a pair of particles that are fundamentally linked. They share a single existence. The best way to think about it is they aren't two separate particles anymore. They're two parts of a single system. Now, what the detectors are actually measuring is a property called spin. And here's the quantum rule. When you measure the spin of these two entangled particles at the same angle, you are guaranteed to get opposite results. One will be up, the other down. So whoever built this box was pretty smart. They just wired the detectors backwards, basically. So when detector A measures up and flashes red, detector B measures down but is wired to also flash red. That's the trick to getting a perfect match every single time.
And that right there, that's the quantum truth. The particles don't have a predefined answer. The answer doesn't even exist until you ask the question. So that spooky action Einstein was so worried about, it's not a message. It's not something traveling faster than light. It's just the fact that these particles are, and always will be, connected. You poke one part of the system, the whole system knows about it instantly, because it is a single system.
And this isn't just some brain teaser. Real experiments, versions of this black box test, have been done over and over again. And every single time quantum mechanics wins, common sense loses. And the results? They tell us that our basic, everyday understanding of reality is just wrong.
So, what are we supposed to take away from all this? First, Einstein's spooky action at a distance is real. The universe is non-local. What happens here can be connected to what happens over there. But, and this is important, before you go trying to build a faster-than-light communicator, there's a catch. The result at any one detector is still totally random. You have no control over it. The magic, the spooky correlation, only shows up later when you bring your two notebooks together and compare the results. The magic isn't in what one detector sees. It's in the relationship between them. So in the end, we're stuck with a universe that just doesn't play by our common sense rules.
Back to Einstein's question, is the moon there when nobody's looking? Well, quantum mechanics kind of says you're asking the wrong question. The very property of being there isn't quite real until something interacts with it. And, as one physicist famously said about all this, if it doesn't bother you, you probably haven't understood it.